Today's session starts with this pre-recorded presentation of about 25 minutes. We'll provide instructions on how you can ask questions or provide comments at the end of this presentation. Please hold your comments or questions until after the recording. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about the TheRide 2045 long-range plan. Today we will go over the long-range planning process, the goals we hope to achieve, and then go over the elements of the plan itself, like what our fixed route network could look like in 2045, our ideas for regional connections, paratransit, and other services. It's important to note that we're still very much exploring the ideas. Everything you hear and see today represents concepts or options that are being evaluated. Ultimately, we will rely on the feedback of customers, staff, elected officials, and other stakeholders to help us narrow down what is the right plan for the Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti area. What will the TheRide look like in 25 years? The TheRide 2045 long-range plan for the Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti area considers the transit network, or bus routes and their frequency, new and better types of transit, new types of services, infrastructure, technology, and our fleet. We want to hear from you about the right balance between these competing priorities. This plan is being developed with a few specific goals in mind, many of which mirror municipal goals. Over the next 25 or so years, the TheRide would like to increase social equity by improving access to jobs, education, and housing, especially for people living in poverty, help the environment and reduce air pollution, and support existing and attract new businesses. These goals were established based on what we heard from customers, stakeholders, and our board. They're important in guiding how our decisions are going to be made about what options we build on going forward. To plan 25 years in advance means we need to look at the future from every angle. The TheRide 2045 long-range plan was started in 2019, but then delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The process was resumed in February of this year, but we made sure to use all the elements from the 2019 public engagement. So now, the development of the TheRide 2045 takes place over 4 phases. The first was guidance, where we developed a strategy, including the goals, principles, and methodology to guide our decisions along the way. We considered feedback from the public, our board, and stakeholders. We also established the public advisory group, 12 individuals from different backgrounds, to make sure that customer perspectives are considered at all times. The plan guidance report is on the website, and we will share the link at the end of this presentation. The next phase was analysis. Here we looked at the present, how the TheRide currently operates, what's working or what can be improved. And then we looked at the future. How is our community changing in terms of population, demographics, and employment over 25 years? We looked at other plans from municipalities and peer agencies, as well as changing technologies. And while we can't predict the future, we can take a good look at the opportunities and threats that are already on the horizon. The current and future state analysis report is on the website, and we can share that at the end of this presentation as well. Now we are in the third phase. This is where we start to pull together everything we've done so far into options or scenarios for the community to react and comment on. Based on your feedback, we will start to narrow down on a single version for transit in the area. And then we will bring that single version back to you later this winter. The last phase will be to finalize the plan. We will take what we've learned from the third phase and put it into a realistic, step-by-step, achievable implementation plan. Then, once the board officially adopts it, we will have a reasonable, achievable 25-year plan for the TheRide and all of its services that works towards the goals that we stated above. So why are we here today? Well, we want your input on the future of transit in the Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti area. A future for transit that works for everyone. Right now, we are looking for feedback on the scenarios and options that we have so far. Then, after we integrate your feedback and develop a single vision for transit, we'll come back to you once more in the winter. Now is the time to tell us what you think the transit system should look like in 2045. We're going to go through a lot of content about the options and the scenarios today. So grab a pen and a piece of paper and hang on to your ideas. After this presentation, we will invite questions and comments. During the comment period at the end, we will read off your name and unmute your line. To raise your hand by phone, press star 9. We will read off your name or the last 3 digits of your phone number and unmute your line. Don't worry, I'll remind you later how to comment if you didn't catch these instructions. All right, with the background out of the way, let's dive into the fun part, the elements of the plan. First, let's look at the core of our transit system, our network or fixed route buses that thousands of customers rely on each day. There are many ways to set up a bus network in the area. The question is, how much funding will we have and what would we do with those different levels of funding? So we've come up with 4 scenarios of what our network could look like at the end of 25 years and explored different levels of funding just to start this public discussion. The 4 scenarios are baseline, minor enhancement, modest enhancement, and then major enhancement. So let's talk about what each of those scenarios could look like. Let's start with scenario 1. This is a baseline with minimal or no increase to local millage. Now what you're going to see here in all of our scenarios is a map of the area in green called our service area. Now that's everywhere within about a half mile or a 10-minute walk from bus service of some kind. The light blue lines on the map represent where we could operate high-frequency service. That means buses that come at least once every 15 minutes. This scenario includes minor adjustments over the next 25 years. It does include upgrades to both the Blake Transit Center and the Ypsilanti Transit Center. In this scenario, 63% of the population and 82% of jobs are close to those high-frequency bus routes with 15 minutes or better service. We call scenario 1 the baseline because it more or less represents the status quo, basically the service we operate today. We might be able to make a few tweaks to improve service, but nothing more because in this scenario there's little or no increase to the local millage. The exception is for the Blake and Ypsilanti transit centers, which need to be upgraded to deal with capacity issues. These upgrades are included in all of the other scenarios. Now, for each scenario, we'll also show you a map that has the approximate travel times between major destinations. In scenario 1, travel times stay about the same as they are today. Population and employment in our area is expected to grow over the next 25 years. So if transit service stays the same, then that means that service will actually go down, and we will have lower customer experience. That means that more people will be driving cars, which is bad for the environment. And because we aren't improving service, we aren't helping people living in poverty have better access to jobs, education, or housing through transit. So now let's move on and look at scenario 2. In scenario 1, we didn't grow transit. In scenario 2, we will have a small increase in the local millage that will allow us to grow transit. As you can see, there are some minor enhancements across the board, including a few more high-frequency routes. We are also introducing 2 express services represented in dark blue lines on the map. These 2 express services run at least every 10 minutes and will have faster travel times because they won't be stopping at every single stop along the route. Starting in this scenario, we expand TheRide to cover all of the member municipalities. We increase frequencies on many routes during off-peak times so you can use transit at all times of day. Thanks to these investments, we can now have 77% of the population and 93% of jobs that are close to those bus routes with 15 minutes or better service. Compared to scenario 1, travel times improve by about 12%, especially along major corridors. We call scenario 2 the safe option because we're doing just enough to keep up with the growing population and employment in the area. We start to provide better connectivity across Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti, which stimulates economic growth. Buses will be on time more often, and some people would be able to choose transit over cars, which is good for our environment. This scenario means a small improvement in transit access to jobs, education, or housing for people living in poverty. Now let's take a look at scenario 3. In scenario 3, we can start to make more substantial changes to our transit system. First, you can see even more of those light blue high-frequency corridors on the map. Second, you can see the dark blue lines of the express route. Now we're introducing a red line, which represents bus rapid transit. Let's pause for a moment here and talk about what bus rapid transit means. Bus rapid transit, or BRTs, come in many flavors. But what they have in common is that they use technologies and design pieces to make them faster, more reliable, more comfortable, and generally more enjoyable to use. BRT stations are often enhanced with lighting, heaters, and real-time displays. Usually, you pay before you board so you can board at any door, which decreases the amount of time the bus is stopped. And that translates to faster trips. The buses themselves can have improved comfort features, like some infotainment or be extra long and articulated to hold more people. They may have transit priority features to help them move faster than cars, or maybe even operate on a fully dedicated bus lane. While this new type of transit has a larger upfront cost, it is shown to lead to dramatic growth in ridership and transit usage. Now, let's go back to scenario 3 and talk about how BRT can support an enhanced network. So here again is the scenario 3 map. The BRT shown here would not be operating on a fully dedicated lane just to keep costs a little bit lower. Even still, BRT, along with an increased high-frequency service, leads to a significant improvement in transfers. Buses are generally on time much more often. Starting in scenario 3, we are also extending our service later into the evening. All routes will have a 30-minute or better service at off-peak times, meaning you can rely on transit at any time of day. In scenario 3, 86% of the population and 96% of jobs will be close to bus routes with 15 minutes or better service. Scenario 3 is where we start to see some really exciting results. Compared to scenario 1, travel times are 24% faster. That is thanks to the introduction of BRT and an expanded high-frequency network, which allows customers to transfer reliably in many locations. In this scenario, transit service grows faster than the population and employment, leading to better service all around. The better service means that customers find using transit more attractive, which in turn means more people leaving their cars at home. There will be even better access to transit for jobs or housing or education for people living in poverty. And we can really start to see the results that benefit our environment, our economy, and improve equity. All right. Now let's go to our fourth and final scenario. Our last scenario uses large investments to lead to a transformational change of our entire transit system. In scenario 4, we have an extensive high-frequency network that stretches across the Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti area. We have 2 full-scale bus rapid transit routes operating on fully dedicated lane, creating high-speed, reliable, convenient north-south and east-west connections. We have a broad network of high-frequency services that create even better, faster connections with better on-time performance. There will be even more off-peak service, and that allows a seamless journey across the entire service area at any time of day. In scenario 4, 93% of the population and 99% of jobs will be close to those high-frequency routes with 15 minutes or better service. And all elements of this scenario work together to be truly transformational. With newer, better types of transit, you'll really start to see major changes in how people move around this area. The improvement in travel times is about what you'd expect to see. Compared to scenario 1, travel times here would be about 33% faster, and in some cases up to 40% faster when you really get going. The type of improvement gets people to shift their travel choices, leave their car at home, or maybe sell that second car and use transit on a consistent basis. This scenario has major benefits to our local economy, our environment, and equity. It means that even more transit access for jobs and housing for people living in poverty. Okay, that was a lot of information about the different scenarios and how our transit system can change. There are way more things that we can talk about, but let's pause for a moment here and talk about something called transit priority. Transit priority is a set of technologies and strategies that we can use to prioritize the movement of buses over cars. We didn't mention it earlier, but we are actually counting on using different forms of transit priority starting in scenario 2 and stepping it up through scenario 3 with even more in scenario 4. So some of the common features that you might see include transit signal priority. So this is a stoplight that can detect or communicate buses, give them an earlier green light or hold a green light long enough for them to get through an intersection. There are also queue jump lanes. In this case, you use parking lanes or turning lanes to safely allow buses to skip past a line of vehicles at a busy intersection. You could also use fully dedicated bus lanes. This allows buses to avoid mixing with cars, which can be a significant slowdown, especially during rush hour. All of these things work together to make transit faster, more attractive, efficient, and reliable. And this helps transit compete with cars, resulting in a significant ridership growth. This map shows some of the areas where we are exploring the value of transit priority options, like the ones discussed on the last slide. As you can imagine, transit priority is also an important part of any bus rapid transit ideas that we showed you in scenarios 3 and 4. All of these options will make any transit faster, more attractive, efficient, and reliable, and that attractiveness will help transit compete with cars, resulting in a significant ridership growth. We've shown you 4 scenarios. These 4 scenarios were developed based on numerous different inputs and based on how our community is growing and evolving over the next 25 years. We've tried our best to summarize some important information on this slide, but forgive us if it seems like a lot of information to take in. We just want to be as transparent as possible that achieving transformational change will take a significant investment from the community. Each scenario represents what can be achieved depending on how much the community is willing or able to invest over the next 25 years. The most important thing to measure when evaluating transit success is ridership. How many trips are being delivered? Increased ridership means more people accessing their jobs, going shopping, visiting friends and family, or accessing housing. It means transit is helping us to achieve our goals. And those goals are to increase social equity by improving access to jobs, education, and housing, especially for people living in poverty, to help the environment and reduce air pollution, and to support existing and to attract new businesses. To no one's surprise, to achieve greater transit success, significant investments are required. These investments come in the form of ongoing operational costs that would be covered through local millage and fares, as well as one-time capital costs paid over the next 25 years, which might be supported by federal or state funding, but would require some form of local support as well. The choice is the community's to make, and we look forward to hearing your comments at the end of this session. All right, that was a lot of information, but we're not quite done yet. Those were the scenarios for our fixed route buses, but TheRide offers a lot more than that. Let's take a look at other elements that we have planned, like regional connections, park and ride, paratransit, and our other services. How we connect to the region is critical to our long-term success. We can draw riders in from a broader area by increasing the total number of parking spaces all around our service area. On the map, the light green shows the areas which have been identified where we could add new parking spaces to our park and ride service. As we add parking, we also need to add express bus services to get those people into the center of our service area. We've also identified important connections to downtown Detroit, the Detroit Airport, and West Wayne County. All of these elements would help better connect our community to our neighbors and help commuters going to work, shop, or visit in Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti. It is crucial to note that partnerships and outside funding will be essential for building out these regional elements. An important part of TheRide's mandate is to provide travel for customers with disabilities. Traditionally, this has been using TheRide, our paratransit service that complies with the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA. Our long-range plan for paratransit will consider the following principles. First and foremost, we will continue to comply with the ADA. This means investing in added service to support the expanded coverage area and hours of operations that we presented in scenarios 2, 3, and 4. Second, we will look for ways to enhance accessibility and efficiency on our entire system, and that reduces demand on TheRide. For example, we'll look for ways to expand other on-demand services like GoldRide, FlexRide, and MyRide, and look for ways to better connect all of these services to our increasingly accessible fixed route buses. Finally, we will maximize the use of technologies to improve the efficiency and the customer experience for anyone using TheRide. Finally, We will maximize the use of technologies and improve efficiencies and customer experience for any customers with disabilities. We've also been exploring other ideas that can be used with any of the scenarios that we've shown. These ideas vary from new technologies, improved or supporting infrastructure, and new services, but we aren't going to go into all of these today because there's just not enough time. But we welcome any questions or comments on these or any others. You can find more information on our website where this PowerPoint is posted online. Remember, these are just ideas we're considering, and we don't know which ones are best suited for our community yet. That's why we want to hear from you, to help inform our community vision. I should note here that there's a much longer list of ideas that we're exploring. This list includes recommendations from other studies that have already come up. There are also strategies that take time and effort, but not capital spending to achieve success. For example, TheRide has to continue to collaborate with important partners to build strong relationships. For example, the Regional Transit Authority to improve connections to destinations around the region, and with the U of M to plan and coordinate services where they both operate. With the member municipalities, we have to ensure that transit-supported land use and urban development takes place. And with organizations and advocates that are already supportive to transit, let's help them advocate for a positive transit vision. Second, TheRide must continue to pursue organizational excellence. By ensuring an appropriate way of providing contracted services to municipalities, maintaining updated service standards, and improving supplier management and contract structures, we have to continue to improve the way that our organization works to ensure that it remains efficient and meets the community's needs. The last key to our strategy is to be open to new ideas and innovations that can come out over time. There are always new and emerging technologies, and it would be naive to think that we know now the complete picture of what the options will be in 25 years. But we can look at some of the exciting ideas being contemplated today: autonomous vehicles, connected vehicles, pedestrian detections, and others. While some of these technologies have greater potential benefit, they are also at very different levels of maturity. A big part of this plan is being ready for those emerging technologies over the next 25 years. TheRide must continuously identify, monitor, and be flexible enough to include these emerging technologies and innovations to fit into our 2045 vision, even if they're not ready today. So that concludes our presentation. In just a moment, we're going to open the floor to questions and comments. What did you like? What didn't you like? What did we miss? Your thoughts matter to us. As a reminder, we're still in the third phase of developing the plan. In this phase, we're looking at scenarios and testing ideas. Nothing you've seen or heard today has been decided. These are concepts that you're being presented, designed to seek your feedback. Once we collect your feedback, we're going to take that away and create a more detailed final plan, which we'll take to public comment next winter. To provide comment, you will need to let us know that you want to speak. To raise your hand by computer, click the raise hand icon. If you're dialing in by phone, press *9. We will read off your name or the last 3 digits of your phone number and then unmute your line. You can also type your comments into the chat and we can answer them live. This is what we really want to hear from you today. What are your thoughts on the scenarios and the concepts presented? Was there something that struck you as particularly exciting? Was there something that you thought was missing that we should be looking at? And secondly, what is the right level of balance between cost and benefit for our communities? Is the community willing to pay to fund these transit innovations? Thank you very much for listening, and we look forward to hearing your feedback. And don't forget to take our online survey. For more information, visit theride.org or visit our project page, theride.org/projects/theride2045. Email us at 2045@theride.org or call us at 734-794-1882. Send us mail at the Ann Arbor Area Transportation Authority, care of the Ride 2045, 2700 South Industrial Highway, Ann Arbor, Michigan, 48104.